Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sarel van Grenen, aka Mr. VG, and this is video 2 in our series of geometry. In this video, we are specifically going to look at geometry questions about straight lines. I'm not going to look at parallel lines. That's going to be in our next video. So in this one, we're going to start off relatively easy, but I want to show you more than just solving questions, techniques for geometry, techniques to help you master geometry going forward. So let's start with the first question. I give you a straight line. I give you that x, I give you the 30, they are adjacent because they're separated by a line. And therefore, I'm asking you, solve for x. Where do I start with geometry? It's always a question by all of my students, even up to matric. So where do I start with geometry? Well, the first thing I start is I think about what theorems could apply to this situation. First of all, we would then write it down. So Funtox. I know I can use Funtox because that's the geometry which applies to straight lines. Once I've got all the theory that I can use, I ignore the theory that is not applicable. I don't have parallel lines, so I'm not going to use Fun. So I'm narrowing it down from 6 theorems to 3 theorems. Now, if I look at the T, I'm hitting jackpot because they are adjacent angles on a straight line. So what can I say? Here comes a very important step. Write an equation. So if I write an equation, I know that x plus 30 must be 180 degrees. There's my statement. Why? Because it's the T of tox. But in geometry, I can't make a statement without a reason. Don't forget that. So I write down my reason. Angles on a straight line. Now it's solving an equation. So once I've got my equation, once I've got my statement and I've got my reason, I now ask myself, what number, if I add 30 to it, does it give me 180? Well, x must be 150 degrees. So let's quickly do a recap. Number 1, write out your theorems. Okay? Even if it is just nice and small, write out your theorems. Number 2, ignore the irrelevant theorems. So ignore that F, U, and N. And then I'm going to choose the theorem that I need. So that is going to be basically step 3. Choose the theorem. Now, I know I'm putting it very, how can I say it, formally. You're like, oh, so, but I can just see it. For now, you can see it. But remember, in a year or 2 or 3 years' time, you are not just going to have 6 theorems to choose from. Then you might have 30 or 40 theorems, even more than that to choose from. So it's good in your mind to write down, eliminate, choose. Then our step 4, write out the equation with the specific theorem. And then, of course, now we are going to solve. Now I'm laying it out, but this is very valuable for you going forward. So I'm going to speed up to the next question. If I look at the next question, now I want you to go and try this yourself first. So hit the pause button on this video, try it yourself, and when you're ready, then you come back. Let's start by looking at the first one. The first one. Well, I'm going to write out my theorems that I've got. Funtox. Okay? I'm going to ignore the fun because there's no parallel lines. So I'm just going to look at the t, the o, and the x. In our first question there, I've got the 80, the x, the y, and the z going clockwise. If I look at the t, it says that the 80 plus the x must give me 180. So I write it, I scribble it in on my sketch. Now next up, I'm just going to say, well, let's look at the x. Why do I go to the x before the o? Because there's just so many variables and stuff going on. So I'm going to first of all look at the x. So this means the 80 and the y must be equal. I love to note this with different color pens on my sketch. Lastly, now if I've got x and I've got y, I can actually use the o to go all the way around, and that must add up to 360. Look, I know you don't necessarily have to use it, but I'm going to use it in any case. So let's start with, first of all, solving x. So 80 plus x must be 180 degrees, and I have to write my theorem or my reason there. What number adding 80 to it gives me 180? Well, x must be 100. I love to, once I've calculated something, write it in on my sketch. Next up, let's go to y. Well, y must be 80 degrees. Why is that? Because they are vertically opposite angles. So write it in on my sketch. At this moment of time, I'm telling you clearly, grade 8s, you can either go towards z by using vertically opposite or angles on a straight line. But for the sake of just using all the different theorems, this is just me, I'm going to look at the o. So the 80 plus the 80 plus the 100 plus z must give me 360 because it's angles around a point. Now it's solving an equation. So in other words, adding the left-hand side, 260 plus z must be 360, so z is 100. You might sit there on the other side of the screen and go, but wait, sir, you could have just done vertically opposite or angles on a straight line, and you would be 100% correct. But I just wanted to do this for the fun of it, to go and show you how revolution angles or angles around a point work. Now let's go on to the next question. The next question is, I've got x and 3x and I've got a 90 degree there. What do I know about those three angles? Let's set up my equation. Well, the x plus the 90 plus the 30, or the 3x I mean, must be equal to 180 degrees. Why? They are adjacent angles on a straight line. There we go. Now, take off your geometry hat, put on your algebra hat, and solve x. Get x's alone on one side, adding the like terms, transposing that 90 over, and it becomes 180 minus 90. If I divide both sides then by 4, I get a value of x of being 22,5 degrees. Please don't freak out if you get a comma something, or if you've got a decimal or a fraction. Man, it's maths, it's fine. I know you guys don't like it, but it's fine. It works out 100%. So please remember to go through those processes when you are solving geometry. This is Mr. VG signing out. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Please tune in on our next video about parallel lines. Keep well. Cheers.